in theory, it is going. But I never trust it, so I'm going to look to see. There. Theory. Hey, it is going. Cool. I mean, seriously, why would I trust this technology? It sounds so stupid, but I've had issues before where either just you think you hit to record and it doesn't have much meaning, it's on you, or you did everything right and it just decides not to work. Yeah. So anyway, I'm here early. So I'll do what I've done before. I'll talk about something else. Waiting until 9 o'clock to actually get into the episode of the animated series that I did watch called The Slaver Weapon, which I will just say now, Slaver is apparently the name of an ancient, well, prehistoric, technically. That's a little weird. Civilization. Don't know. It's a little weird. And looking at the trivia, though, actually just help explain some stuff, but we'll get to that. So for now, I'm going to mention something else I watched this week. I don't remember if I held up. I know. Wait. What was it that held it up? I have a set down here of the Abbott and Costello movies, at least from Universal. I've been working through those slowly, but working through them. Finally watched Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which for a lot of people, they say that's the best movie they ever made. I'm not sure. It's definitely up there. It's definitely up there. Don't get me wrong. I love the film. But there's some others that are also really good. Really good. Like The Time of Their Lives. Very good movie. Anyway. I've seen this movie so many times in my life. I'm watching it. And, I've even seen it as an adult, I want to say, though it's been a while. I never noticed something. It's a small conversation between Dracula and, a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah, Sandra. So the premise to Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is Abbott and Costello they work in the, luggage department for, a railroad, something like that, where they receive the luggage, you come to them, and then they give it to you. So shipping clerks. Two things were shipped to them. And I know one thing I had never really noticed before. 2 crates meant for McDougal's House of Horrors, right? That he got from Europe. And he mentions, never really noticed it before, what would be the 2 best exhibits for a House of Horrors? The Frankenstein monster and Dracula's coffin. And he said that, yeah, I got so lucky that some auction house in Europe just picked my name out of a hat and sold them to me. Never occurred to me before, oh, no, that was Dracula planning this out because he wanted to have himself and the Frankenstein monster body moved to America, specifically to Florida. That's where they are because that's where there's going to be certain equipment because they want to revitalize the Frankenstein monster body, but also put a new brain in there, which is going to be Lou Costello's brain. Because the original brain was unstable and could rebel, but they figure Lou Costello has no will of his own, so yeah, I can control him. Yeah. And Sandra is necessary for this because she is a surgeon, so she can actually do the surgery of moving Lou's brain and putting it into. So I still have a little bit of a cough. So, okay, no, I think I don't need a cough more right now. Anyway, she's gonna do the surgery of putting it in there. She's also the one who is having to study Frankenstein's notes in order to do the surgery. And there's another doctor involved who he's apparently just doing the electrical work, setting all that up. He's not really party to this. They're just using him. But there's a conversation I'd never noticed before. It's okay, hey, Dracula arranged with McDougal as an unwitting accomplice to be transferred in there. So, okay, so it's that I'd never picked up on before. Minor point. But there's a conversation between Dracula and Sandra. I legitimately have no memory of ever hearing it enough to really listen and pay attention for why she's working with Dracula. Because she knows it's Dracula. She's known the entire time. Why would she work with this evil being, in many cases considered the king of the monsters? Because at least for the classic Universal monsters. Dracula is considered that because well, for one thing, historically, they're associating Dracula with the devil, which is a little ironic because of actual aspects of Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Dracul. But anyway, it's because Dracula is very immortal compared to many other monsters. He's very intelligent, has the ability to control others, and can make more vampires. Like, he really is a top tier monster. Why would she work with him? Well, in this conversation, he's mentioning about how she can't go back to Europe, how he can turn her in, because apparently she's an illegal surgeon that was like mutilating people and such, and had to flee Europe. I had never noticed this before, and I know I've watched movies since being an adult. As a kid, I can definitely, as a kid, I never would have noticed this, never would have heard it, never would have processed. As an adult, still somehow never picked up on that before, never heard that before. It's small, but it really helps explain that Sandra is always a bad person in this. Like, she is evil. And it's not just because Dracula does eventually have to take control of her, basically hypnotize her, make her a servant to him. Even before that, even before he is able to dominate her will, she is still evil. Never noticed that before. And it made me wonder, it's like, was there, like, something in the news at that time that people would have been aware of, where it's like, oh yeah, there would be surgeons like that would be fleeing Europe? I don't know. I've now looked into it, but this movie came out in 1948. That might be Holocaust reference. Could be. Like the idea that, oh, there were doctors there that fled successfully, at least for a time, and maybe she's one of them. I could believe it. I don't know. But it was still just very fascinating. It's like, whoa. This movie's a bit darker than... I mean, when you start listening to the, like, the smaller conversations in it, that does become a slightly darker movie. But in a way, it's also a better movie because it's like the whole realizing that McDougal is being set up by Dracula to bring the bodies over. Catching that, it's like, oh yeah, that's... It's actually setting this up, that yes, all of this is being orchestrated by Dracula. And then the whole how he's able to manipulate Sandra, because, like, I can always turn you in. But, I mean, she's able to point out, yeah, but you don't know how to perform the surgery. So, anyhow, it is now 9:02, so we can talk about this. So, yes, the 11th episode produced, 14th episode to air, The Slaver Weapon, which I actually noticed right when I was playing. At the very start, it says, it was written by, hang on, was it something Niven? Was it Tom or... sorry. Larry Niven. Why was I thinking Tom? Anyhow, apparently well, hang on, let me just... Yeah, Larry Niven and DC Fontana wrote it. So DC Fontana is one of the original writers for the original series, and she did a very good job. Some of the best episodes are hers. Anyway, apparently Larry Niven had written his own stories. This is the thing that when you read the trivia, is talked about there for the what were they called? It was a series. It's like Known Worlds, Known Space. Sorry, that's it. Known Space novels, and mentions here that like some of the stuff in that. Well, Roddenberry invited him to be involved and adapt one of his stories, and that one was called the one that he adapted is called The Soft Weapon. In a way, it makes sense. That is, if this is consistent, if what we see in The Slaver Weapon is consistent with what is in his story, the soft actually does make sense here. So, I mentioned before 9 o'clock, the slaver in this case is a reference to a ancient, kind of sort of prehistoric civilization that they had spanned the galaxy, according to what Spock is saying, 1 billion years ago. So they were very advanced, very powerful. But at one point, and they had dominated all other civilizations. But at one point, there was a revolt that was successful enough that it plunged the galaxy into such a war that intelligent life needed to evolve again. I have my doubts about some of this, but it's like that seems a bit much. And there are some consequences to that again. This is kind of curious, but it also in a way might be sort of a commentary. Hopefully I'll remember to say that later. Sort of a commentary on how life exists in the modern day Starfleet timeline, so Star Trek timeline. But anyway, so one thing that has survived through that billion years from that previous civilization or other civilizations, but mainly that one, are these things called slaver boxes. They are actually stasis boxes. Anything you put in them is kept in perfect stasis, such that even after a billion years, it's as though no time has passed at all. And these had... arm of the chair bumped a button. So the... right there. Finding these is very significant, because within can be this technology from a civilization that spanned the galaxy. That's a big deal. You really want to find this stuff. Also, just the stasis boxes themselves are fascinating technology, and there's a mention that they react to others, such that once you find one, it helps you find others. This becomes important to the story later. But one thing that is mentioned, and I do have a certain issue with this because it just makes the timeline kind of weird, is that one of the boxes that had been found previously, when they opened it, had a levitation belt. And it stated that this was that by studying that belt, they were able to figure out artificial gravity for starships. It's like, really? You wanted to be like that? Because how long was humanity then like an interstellar species? Like that, because they might not have been going very fast yet. Excuse me. An interstellar species, I could find one of these boxes, open it up, find the belt, figure out how that works, and get artificial gravity. That just seems a bit much. But it is also, to be fair, the timeline for technological development in Star Trek and even with the anime series, it is very different. Star Trek First Contact really changed a lot. And does contradict canon. Because the most obvious thing with the contradiction is that according to... Was it Metamorphosis? Was that the episode of the original series that we meet Zephyr Cochrane? Might have been. But he was from a different planet than Earth. He is human. But he was from a different planet. So humanity had already become an interstellar species before the warp drive was developed. First Contact says, nope, it's all that. So it's like, the timeline stuff is a little different there, where things were developed over a long period of time. Certain events happened further apart. Whereas later on, it's like, nope, everything happened very early on. So the idea that you could have had sublight ships without artificial gravity, it's not unreasonable, but it's still just seems very odd. I don't know. It just seems odd. And I'll also mention this. Artificial gravity, I think one of the Let's Build a Spaceship videos, I did talk about it. I know I've talked about artificial gravity before. But artificial gravity is like, that kind of discovery would rival like figuring out a warp drive, something that allows you to travel faster than the speed of light, because there's a lot you could do with that. A lot. Anyway, another thing that they discovered, and this is relevant, from one of these boxes was they opened up and, oh, there's a bomb in here. And the pin has already been pulled. That's not good. And indeed it wasn't. It exploded, which is why Starfleet now takes custody of these boxes whenever they are found. Well, one was found. So I think they may have said it was Galileo. I don't remember, but it's a shuttlecraft that has Sulu, Spock, and Uhura on there. We meet no other members of the main crew. Which this is, it even mentions that between, blanking on it now. The original pilot for Star Trek. I'm just blanking. Oh yeah, that's right. The Cage. This was the two-parter was the Menagerie. But yeah, the Cage, and then Encounter and Farpoint. That was the first and last, basically. During that span, this is the only time Kirk is not actually in the show. Does not appear. Because he was in the second pilot and then going all the way through until Encounter at Farpoint. The first TNG episode. So, just those three. And it explains in there it's because when Niven was adapting the story as a screenplay for the animated series, he's like, I don't have a character like Kirk. I got one like Sulu and Uhura and Spock, but I don't have one like Kirk. So, he's not there. So anyway, they found a box. They've not opened it yet. It needs to be studied better. And they're in one of these shuttlecraft, and it's like, hey, we're just going to head out. And then it starts reacting. They're like, oh, that's odd. Where are we, Sulu? We're in this area. Well, this reaction tells us there must be another box nearby. So let's investigate that. And it is later... They end up getting captured by the Kzinti, a cat-like, aggressive, and carnivorous, believe it or not, that actually is important here, carnivorous species. And Spock is immediately, supplementary log. Yep, I let my curiosity get the better of me. I should not have done this. I take full responsibility for this. It's like, dude, relax. A lot of people would have made that thing. I was like, yeah, you're responsible, but it's more of a, because you're in command, not a, you made a mistake. But that's Spock. That very much is Spock. I don't remember which original series episode, but there is one where he does the exact same thing. He says the exact same thing. But anyway, they've been captured because they went down trying to find this box, the second box, and it was a trap. Turns out it was a trap. The Kzinti have had this thing for a while. Their box was empty, though. But they were like, well, if we hold on to it, we can use it as a trap to bring people with other boxes that may have something valuable in there. So as I said, they are aggressive, they are belligerent. They haven't killed these three immediately, but they want the contents of their box because Sulu said that there have been four wars with humanity since they first encountered each other. The last one being about 200 years ago, and the Kzinti have consistently lost. This group of them is seemingly renegades. What they're doing is not sanctioned by the government, and if they come back empty-handed, they will likely be executed for their crimes. However, if they come back with something significant, then, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yeah, that's actually not that uncommon of a story, even in Star Trek, because there is, to a degree, like with Search for Spock, what Krug is doing, he's technically a renegade. He is acting... His actions are those of a renegade, but if he's successful, he is basically saying, at least in the novelization, that, yeah, if we succeed, I'm going to be one of the greatest heroes in Klingon Empire. But they have to succeed. But it's also kind of one of those, well, it doesn't matter, because we either succeed or we die. So anyway, the three have been captured, and Spock then says to Uhura and Sulu, and especially when noticing that apparently the Kzinti are telepathic, or at least some of them are, and can read minds. And he's like, okay, they're not going to touch my mind, and they're not going to touch your mind, Uhura, because they consider us inferior. There's a little bit more explanation for both, actually, but Sulu, they will consider you an equal, so they may try to probe your mind. If they do, imagine yourself eating a vegetable. According to the trivia, the Kzinti are basically out of Niven's novels, and this is in fact a way to defeat them. They find eating plants so horrible that they the image of it, they will stop. They will act. It's horrible for them. It's painful for them. Which is part of the reason why. Well, so they consider Spock, a Vulcan, inferior because they are predominantly vegetarians. They don't have to be to be clear on that, they do not have to be. It's not like that is their... It's their diet of choice, not their diet of biology. So, for example, there are humans that choose to be vegetarians. And that's fine. They're choosing that. But humans, as a species, we are omnivores. We can eat plant life, and we can eat meat, no problem. So that's why... Well, that's one reason why they will not touch Spock's mind. The other is Vulcans are pacifists. Yeah. Which, technically, there is the whole... Yeah, but he's in Starfleet, so... Not quite. It did also just remind me to mention that is also one thing about Vulcans that is more consistently held in the original series. And even... I'll explain that. Is more originally held in the original series. And one of the reasons why I don't like Enterprise. The portrayal of the Vulcans, I think, is very false. And even damaging. How they are so hypocritical and so political. I don't think that's consistent with what we see in the rest of the corpus of Star Trek at that time. But this would also be an example of that. That yes, Vulcans, it's stupid. There is a logic to warfare. I think there's a logic to violence as well. But it does make sense how they are so pacifist. It does. And in Enterprise, nope, they threw that all out. They have warships. It's like, what the heck? There's another point that I had with that. Oh, yeah, that's right. Because you do end up... I mean, technically, even in the original series, the Doomsday Machine... No, not Doomsday Machine. The one with the amoeba. Immunity Syndrome, that's it. There was another starship that was, in fact, entirely crewed by Vulcans, and they all died. So, in that case, yes, you do have more than Spock in there. But I think... By and large, that's kind of neglected. And it's more so Spock was the first Vulcan in Starfleet, and that was significant because Starfleet is by its nature a military. They're supposed to be pacifists, but he kind of showed that, no, there is still a path there that you can serve the Federation by being in Starfleet. And then certainly you do have in Deep Space Nine with taking me out to the Holosuite, an entire ship, again, just Vulcans. That's also because the Vulcan captain, Sonak? Sonak is the motion picture. Can't remember the name. Anyway, but he's a racist. I mean, like, really bad. Not, like, if you look at the videos I did for the novelizations, not that kind of Vulcan racist. Different kind of Vulcan racist. The bad kind of Vulcan racist. Not that racist is good, but worse. Anyhow, I think that at least you can explain as it follows from Spock being the first. Anyway, getting back to this. I can just go on any topic, can't I? But coming back to this. So they won't touch Spock's mind for those reasons. Pacifist and vegetarian. Although they actually refer to it as herbivore, but it's not true. He can eat whatever he wants. He's like a human in that regard, but he chooses to not eat meat. Uhura, it's just because, yeah, their females are stupid, so they just look down on all females of any species. And Uhura's like, excuse me, Mr. Spock? What are you saying? It's like, I know you're intelligent. They don't. This may work to our advantage, though, because if there's an opportunity for you to escape, they might not care, because they might not think you're a threat. It's like, all right. I mean, she's not happy about this, but it's makes sense. And she does, in fact, later get a chance to escape. So anyway, they're captive. The Kzinti have the box. They've explained it. Yeah, we had one for a while, but it was empty. So we want to open up your box because, hey, if we can find some great, awesome technology in here, especially because these things technically date to when the slaver civilization was at war, there might be weapons in that. Then we can use that and attack humanity and destroy you. And yeah, it's been 2 centuries that they're still holding on to that grudge. Anyhow, so they open it up and start pulling things out. Unfortunately, there's never an explanation for 2 of the items, but there are 3 in there. One they pull out is a picture that's like, huh, maybe this is what the slavers look like. All right, moving on. Hunk of meat that looks like steak, but is very roughly cut. Like very polygonal, no idea why. And it's like, interesting, put that down. And later, that's examined, and they determine it's protoplasm and poisonous, so they don't want to eat that. But yeah, no idea with the picture. That's never really explained. It's actually Sulu, because they're in the room and see this. Sulu's the one who's like, maybe that's what a slaver looks like. And they read his mind, and they're like, yeah, okay. I mean, that's just what we go with. That's it. But then they pulled this object that honestly, at first, looked to me like almost like a large ocarina, so an instrument. But they're like, oh, this must be the weapon. There's no reason to believe it is a weapon. Just they want it to be a weapon. And I don't remember the exact timeline of things. Let me check on this. Let me also fix that. So yeah, I mean, what I was thinking, because the whole pulling this stuff out, is that are these like child's things? Because like you pull out the pictures, like could that be like the picture up on a kid's wall, and this thing's a toy? And the fact that as they start using, because it does have a I'm just trying to think, what would be? Do I have something that's a good example for it? Not readily around me, sadly. I should, though. Like, I can visualize it. But I can't see it. The closest I can think of is, on my remote here, is this. It's a Roku remote. Crap, I don't remember the exact name, but the toggle switch here. That just, here I can toggle on and off whether or not it can record my voice at all. I have it off. But it's got multiple settings. It's like the whole handle has multiple points on it, so they can move it through that. And as they do, it takes on these different forms that do different things. In one case, it's like someone's like aiming at Sulu, firing, and it's like, did anything happen? Did you see anything? No, I didn't see anything. Read his mind. Did anything happen? It was just like a buzzing because they're outside on a planetoid that isn't really safe, so they're wearing the life support belts. The 3R. The Kzinti are actually in spacesuits, which helps demonstrate the difference in technology between these two. But anyway, it's like now it's just like vibrating or some buzzing, so nope, nothing. It's like, okay, let me go to the next. It's a telescope. Okay. We already have telescopes, so try again. Okay, well, this has gun sights on, so let's try that. Firing it. It's a laser. Okay, well, we got a weapon. And it's like, even Sulu and Spock are like, we beat that like 100 years ago. This is meaningless. Goes to another thing, pulls that, and it is like a rocket, and just starts dragging the guy around. It's kind of funny. And Uhura takes that opportunity, because she actually gets, they're in this web thing that is supposed to hold them there unless it's shut off. She gets hit out of it. The guy bumped into her. The captain bumped into her. She fell out, and so she just got up and started running. They were able to catch her. And in fact, she later laments the whole, man, I used to run at record times, and oh man. But it's what it is. Keeps going through different settings. One of them drains all energy around. Also at this point, because of him flying around, he bumped into the mind reader. They're in a spacesuit, and he got a tear in it, so now he's actually venting breathable air, so they had to get him inside. He's fine. But the captain's spinning around, finally gets control. They lock Uhura back up. He goes to his next thing, and it appears to just absorb energy, so it shuts off everything around them, including the web. The Kzinti aren't noticing this. And by the way, that technology, it is acknowledged. I've never seen anything like that before. That's actually kind of neat. But Spock's like, okay, Uhura, Sulu, you run. We're going to make a run for it because, hey, we can't. We got it. They do that, and Spock, he decides to do something he needs to do, which is to run at and actually attack the captain. He like does a drop kick against him, runs, and it knocks like the captain out, and also it knocks the weapon free. He picks that up, and they're running. So they have it. Unfortunately, Uhura does get shot in the back, so they have her captured. So it's not a great situation. But Spock attacking the captain was very significant because he's a pacifist. He's a vegetarian. The Kzinti hate both and consider him inferior for both reasons. The captain was just attacked successfully, wounded successfully by a pacifist vegetarian. Yeah, that's not going to go over well. So like they've escaped, and Sulu is even saying to Spock, I mean, can't they just call for help? And he's like, no, because he can't admit that I attacked him successfully. They can't admit any injury, because that's a stain on his honor. He needs to kill me himself. If he calls for help, he will be humiliated. And indeed, the captain even does say that, because does hail them, because Sulu has a communicator. And he's like, hey, we'll trade you the weapon for the woman. It's like, what about Mr. Spock? Oh, well, he has to, also come along. It's like, that's non-negotiable. I have to fight him in single combat. It's like, uh-huh. And Spock is like, all right. The guy's claiming that, yeah, you broke 2 of my ribs. And he's like, their ribs are, have like a vertical bracing. And when I attacked him was actually like at his heart. So, he's just working at it. It's like, yeah, 16-1, I lose. 1 chance out of 17 that he would win. So it's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And it's actually, I did like this line when the captain is like, you must not think well of your Vulcan friend that, you refuse this offer. And Sulu responds back, no, I don't think well of you. That's like, basically, if we give you everything you want, why would we trust you? But also suggesting that, no, you're likely not as injured as you're claiming. But anyway, because they have the weapon, they keep looking at it. It's like, there is nothing here special. And the laser weapon, it's like, yeah, we surpassed that 100 years ago. This is meaningless. They could have it and it wouldn't be a problem. But it's like, I mean, there's got to be something more interesting here. Now, 2 things are going on here that I have a problem with. One is the continued assumption that it is a legitimate weapon. It turns out to be true, but that's an assumption that they're just running with. And it would have been kind of fun if it wasn't. The other is, and it's born of that they do believe that is a weapon. Sulu is like, this thing doesn't make... I'm going to start holding some with my hand. Actually, no. I'll hold the remote. This makes no sense for a soldier, for a frontline soldier. It's like they were in a war. You wouldn't want a telescope. You wouldn't want, the laser, fine, maybe that's useful, but the telescope doesn't make sense. The energy drain thing doesn't make sense. This thing doesn't, none of these features make sense. So maybe this was actually for a spy. Okay. I still don't like these why are you making these assumptions? But here's what it is. So going through that, then it's like, well, Spock is like, maybe the weapon, the most powerful weapon there, is at its null setting. So it's like, all right, so they go up to null, and it then just becomes the handle that they're holding onto in an orb up top, a sphere up top. So it's like, maybe some manipulation there. So Sulu's like, all right, grabs it, and turns into another weapon that does have another weapon shape. It's been shape-shifting throughout all this. I think I forgot to mention that. And has a gun sight on this. So it's like, all right, this looks promising. Let's try it out. Fire it over there. Beam goes out and it's like, oh, shit. Yeah. That's a very, very, very big explosion, because apparently the slavers figured out how to, at range, so with a beam, have matter to energy conversion. So basically, he has a handheld weapon that detonates like a photon torpedo. because that's what a photon torpedo's warhead is it's got 1 kilogram of antimatter, 1 kilogram of matter. Yeah. Yeah. Which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the spec, that it is a kilogram of each. And then they, smash it together so that you have the conversion. I'm not entirely sure how you would manage to modify that yield because, and technically you can with photon torpedo. It just doesn't make much sense because the antimatter is always there. You always have 1 kilogram of antimatter, and that touching any matter, which is the rest of the universe, is gonna go boom. I mean, it's not like with a fusion bomb, an H-bomb, where you can modify the amount of deuterium or tritium, well, the deuterium and tritium that's present to change the yield. Technically, even a fission bomb, you might be able to do some modification, but yeah, I don't know. But anyway, they do that, and that blast is so powerful, it knocks them not only down, but out. Which is a problem, because then the Kzinti see this happen, so it's like, oh, go, we can pick them up now. So then it's like, okay, they got the weapon again, the 3 are trapped again. Well, let's look at this thing again, because clearly that weapon exists, but it reverted back. They don't know what, so it isn't in the stage that is that very powerful weapon. That is we cannot let the Kzinti have this. They're warlike, they will go to war, they will try to conquer the galaxy, and they may have a chance at it succeeding. So it's like, this is a problem. But fortunately, they need to figure out, and they have it, and they are in the null setting and turn it, but, if Sulu turned it this way, they turned it that way. So, and they're like, oh no, but wait a minute, that's a different configuration. What is this? It looks like it might be a communication device, because it has, buttons on it. It also has a flashing light on there. Which then gets brought up that the Kzinti are superstitious and think that weapons can be haunted by their prior owners. They don't want to have to deal with the slavers, so that's not good for them. But it turns out it's not a communicator. This thing is also a computer that can respond to voice commands. And so they start talking to it. And they're like, do you know where you are, when you are? It's like, no, I really don't know. I have no knowledge of that. And it's like, okay, can you tell us this? It's like, nope, I need a code. I need the passcode to provide any such information. How about this? Can you tell me this? Nope, can't do that. Can you tell us how to put you into this matter conversion weapon state? Turn it this way, and they do this. The Kzinti are that stupid. And it's like, yep, let's do that. And it's like, alright, cool, we got that, go outside, let's fire it. But, Spock and Sulu are both like, that's not what it looked like. What the... And Sulu's like, this could be a problem. Maybe it's a different configuration for the weapon. Spock's like, nah, it's not. It's okay. And in this configuration, it looks like 2 flutes almost on top aimed out that way. And there's no gun sights. So even the Kzinti are like, this doesn't make much sense. If it's a weapon, where's the gun sight? And it's like, well, maybe it's a wide area. Maybe this is a wide area configuration. So if we fire, it'll just go out in all directions. Alright, that's unreasonable. Pull the trigger and thing explodes. Which, by the way, it had been talked about earlier that there might be a self-destruct mechanism in there, which Spock and Sulu were hoping to find, because if they can get it into that and destroy it, then that concern is gone. They just need to rescue her and get out of it. And Spock figures that must have been the self-destruct, because this computer, which has no idea where it is or when it is, all it knows is that when it was put into the box, it was at its species, its home species, the slavers, were at war. It knows that, and is now handled by species it does not know. It would assume, therefore, that the species does not know any of the codes to give it. So the species is likely an enemy. So it's like, alright, go into the self-destruct mode. Well, tell them to put it into self-destruct mode because they're stupid. And then you do that, and yeah, it blows up the majority of the Kzinti crew and also part of the ship. So, then the 3 are able to get back to their shuttle and leave. And maybe they also brought with them the picture and the meat sample if they could find it. The picture might actually be valuable. Sulu makes some comment about how, would have been really neat if we could have, found that weapon and brought it back with us, to have it in a museum. And that also reminds me, the explosion Spock did note was like just a conventional disruptor. which, if I remember correctly, when disruptors are spoken about in the series, multiple of them, I don't know necessarily how a phaser works, but a disruptor, it disrupts molecular bonds. Like that is what's doing that. So it would disintegrate whatever it hits. I'm not entirely sure how a phaser works. Might just be like a plasma laser combination, which would be high energy hitting something, and it could burn through then, incinerate, but that's not necessarily disintegration. Anyhow. But still that's again recognizable technology, so we don't actually have to worry about that. It was only that matter conversion capability that they had to be concerned with. But then he also says that, yeah, this is actually a good thing because there's no way that would have made it to a museum. Its destruction is a good thing because there's no way it could have gone to a museum, because think of all the other species, like the Klingons would have come for it because it's too powerful a weapon. Yeah, that's fair. I'm just checking my notes because I do also have here the whole that was the only thing novel. Well, that's actually not true. The energy dampening was also. So let me. And energy absorption were novel. So everything else the Federation had passed, and that was the thing that I mentioned earlier that I want to give some commentary on. But let me do this first. I do give this a weak recommendation or 2, and it is an interesting idea. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Hence it being a weak recommendation. But it either could have been shorter and some things could have been cut out, refined a bit. I know you don't want this shorter. Or this should have been longer. Like if they had made this full hour and let them linger on more things, like the whole Kzinti mind reading, more history of dealings with the Kzinti, gotten into more reasoning for why, this must be a weapon, this must be a spy's weapon, things like that. Spending more time on that, I think it would have benefited from. But yes, that would have been an hour-long show. These are half hours, but still, it's like I do genuinely like it. But it still has various issues because it's mainly not enough time is spent on certain things. Some things are in there that's like, to what end? Like having the Kzinti mind reader, is there really any benefit to that? You could have cut that out. To be fair, though, that is in the original Niven novels, from what I'm seeing in the story, in the trivia. It's just the IMDb trivia, so it's that. That could be why it's there. And hey, good for him for having it in there, but still, I feel we tighten that up, make it more significant than just this thing, because it seems so next to unimportant. Like the only information, there's only 2 pieces of information the mind reader gives them. The Sulu thinking it's an image of a slaver that was in the box, and the whole, he felt his belt vibrating when the thing was fired at him initially. It's like that's not that important. But anyway, so the thing I wanted to give a commentary on is it is an interesting idea that there's other examples, like the Iconian Empire, that you do see in TNG a few times, I think. Deep Space Nine once. I think only once. But the idea of this ancient, now long dead civilization that was very technologically advanced, spanned the galaxy, and then collapsed. It's like, yeah, I actually find those tropes kind of annoying, because why would a collapsed civilization, especially one that spanned such a wide area, disappear with so little record? Like, the Iconians had a lot of lost technology that people would find it but have no idea how to use it. And it's just, I mean, even as I think on civilizations on Earth, that yes, we lost a lot of information on them. It's like, okay, but why? What happened that led to that? And it's like ancient Egypt. Well, Rome. We have a lot of the technology still from Rome. There was a lot of information lost, yes, but there's still a lot that we was actually preserved. Ancient Greeks as well. If you want to believe in Atlantis, that's different. But ancient Egypt, it's like, okay, well, the language is one issue. That, a lot of that just, until we got the Rosetta Stone, we almost, lost all that. And there was something I saw not that long ago, pointing out that the Rosetta Stone was very nearly destroyed, such that, and oh man, you know what? Now I'm actually really curious about that. Um, okay. Have any other artifacts like the Rosetta Stone been discovered that would aid in the translation of ancient Egyptian language to modern languages? Okay. Okay, so Canopus decree, Canopus stone, a Ptolemaic decree. Okay, yeah, because Ptolemy was one of the generals. Well, okay, so Egypt was its own civilization for a while, then conquered by Alexander the Great, which basically meant that they were under Greek rule then for centuries until the Romans conquered them. And then with the Romans conquering them, yeah, I guess I would have maintained until like that rule until the Islamic invasion and conquering of Egypt that would have then become the Ottoman Empire, and then with that collapse, then Egypt would have been its own nation. I'm actually not sure when the modern Egyptian nation would have come into existence relative to the Ottoman Empire. Like, how would that have worked out? Because I think the Ottoman Empire would have included Egypt, but anyhow. Point being that, yeah, a Ptolemaic decree would have been in both Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphics. Decree of Memphis, Alexandria decrees. Okay. Provide a timeline of these discoveries, of these artifacts being discovered, and the benefits to the translation efforts. Oh, to translation efforts. Okay. So yeah, Rosetta Stone found in 1799. It was the 1828s to 1860s. It's saying here that the Ptolemaic decrees and stelae were discovered and published. So okay, because it's just one of those. Did we really find we found the Rosetta Stone first? It wasn't like we had these other things. So okay, that's interesting. But anyway, yeah. So losing ancient Egyptian knowledge kind of makes some sense because the language was so different from so many others, that yeah, you would end up losing the knowledge because no one could read it, and that would just require yeah. I mean, it does seem odd that you wouldn't see because Egypt, in some degree, at its time, could have been like a super civilization. So how does it make sense that their language would not have spread? Well, it being ideographic, I could believe, would be part of the issue. So every character is itself an idea, versus certainly Phoenician languages where it's actually a sound, and then the sound forms a word, and the word is the idea. Not sure how the Syriac languages necessarily are, because those, they're a different type of language. But it might, I could also believe it's just say that hieroglyphic languages are difficult to spread, and so as it would have been Syriac and Phoenician languages, Greek is a Phoenician language, I could see it being just from that basically the pressure, those would be more successful languages because they have better capabilities than hieroglyphics, and so would kind of be pushing back such that the Egyptian language wouldn't spread. So as it collapses, its own civilization collapses and is changed by the Greek and Roman dominions, you would then see that the language disappear, because it would have been outcompeted. Is my point. So yeah, like I don't know the actual correct term for this, but like the Syriac languages, which include Hebrew and Arabic, initially they had no vowels; they were just consonants, which is fine because you would compose a word that way. It would just be the consonants. That's what you would write down. And when reading it, though, you would just know where the vowels are. The vowels are what tell you how to vocalize it. But that you don't need that in there because you just know how to pronounce it. So you do that and then you'd be fine. Phoenician languages like Greek, they start off with vowels because it was about trying to actually capture exactly how you pronounce it. So yeah, language development is a very interesting thing to I'm definitely a layperson here, but to know even some of these little details, it's fascinating. But that would explain losing knowledge from Egypt. Also, just the whole things do go missing. Paper does decay. Papyrus does decay. And that's another thing that's interesting to see, especially because the whole Middle Ages, how people like to say that, that was horrible. And it's also funny when they try to blame the church for the loss of knowledge. It's like, yeah, except for the whole, monasteries working hard to translate that stuff. And you can argue that, why didn't they translate everything? It's like, well, they only had so much time. And yeah, they prioritized the stuff that they thought was of value. Things they didn't think of value, they didn't prioritize. And so it was lost. But, I mean, yeah. Why should they be prioritizing things that they don't think are of value? But anyway. But yeah, there's that. But it is legitimately things were lost. And personally, I think it's more so with the Middle Ages. I mean, there is the Mediterranean Sea stopped being the Roman lake. You didn't have the security provided by the Roman Navy, but also the Roman military you didn't have anymore. So trade collapsed because the roads were not safe to travel anymore, and the sea wasn't either. So that, I think, had a lot more to do with it. And it's also, it gets weird when you start talking about literacy with that, because it's also, what do you count as literacy? Because you'll quote, they'll try to say that, look at these numbers that we have from the period of low literacy. It's like, yeah, in what language? What do you mean? It's like, what language was that counting for that literacy census? Latin? Yeah, exactly. It's like people knew, there were definitely more people that knew how to read, but they only knew in their own language. So like the Germans would know how to read in German. Some. Not saying all, but some. French knew French. English knew English. Spanish knew Spanish. The Italians would know Italian, kind of thing. But Latin, they wouldn't necessarily know because they didn't have reason to know. So yeah, it's one of those funny things that there was actually a lot of preservation of knowledge being done by the people you're saying did not do it. It's just, as I was saying, I think the main thing there was the loss of trade, of safe passage. But it's still, there's a lot of Roman knowledge that was preserved, in part because people were still using it. People were still building things using Roman means, because that's how they were educated. That's what they learned from. It's like the skills were still being passed down. So coming back to this whole idea that you had this super civilization, the slavish civilization that spread across the galaxy, has now been crushed such that all intelligent life in the galaxy has been destroyed and has to re-evolve. But now we have this very interesting thing that's being described to us here, with the Federation, one of the known great empires in the galaxy at this time. The other two being the Klingon Empire and the Romulan Empire. And the Romulans are kind of weird, because at least in the novelizations, a little bit in the movies, and just a moment. Romulan Empire is suggested in some of the pre-TNG content to actually be fairly small. Like the Klingons are the large empire. The Romulans are much smaller. But in any case, the Federation and the other two should be on parity with them largely. Maybe not the Romulans so much, but the Federation is hundreds of years more advanced than technology that has been found from the hundreds is 100 years more advanced than the weapon. See here, so that is very curious, and it is just one of those things that it's interesting to step back and look at. Does that mean that like the slaver civilization, like, did it develop and become so dominant because it was just the first, and so it didn't need to be more advanced than the Federation to achieve its goals? It just was the first. It was filling a void. There was little pressure, little competition to it. Whereas the Federation and the Klingons and the Romulans and everyone else, they had that competition. So they have, even though they've not spread across the galaxy, they've still developed actually more because they had greater need to. They had to compete for resources and such. It is an interesting idea to think about there. And does that then also suggest that there's a value to that second generation of intelligent life when there might be more seeds for the intelligent life, so there is more competition, so it can lead to greater advances? That's actually a very interesting idea. I don't know if they would have stretched this to be an hour long. You could do that, but it is like, even look at TNG with the Iconian Empire, just described as being warlike, but it has some very advanced technology there. Although the most advanced technology that's mentioned is their gateway, so they can basically project a doorway that would allow them to travel anywhere, and in some cases it's light years away, which would mean that if they had that, they might not have developed starships. So that might be that is more advanced than what the Federation and such had, but maybe just like the existence of even a Constitution class, even the original Enterprise, that itself might have been more advanced than the Iconians. I don't know. It is an interesting to think about, because there is... I do find the idea of these ancient civilizations being more advanced than what you are now, I find that idea kind of obnoxious. Different knowledge, yes, certainly, because they have different materials they're working on, different priorities. So, I'm trying to think what a good example is. Here's one that kind of sort of works, not perfectly. There is some stained glass that we cannot produce today. And because the knowledge has been lost, it wasn't necessarily written down, or if it was written down, that's been lost. But it may have been from one generation to the next, and stained glass stopped being desired. But it could also be, like, even if you took the stained glass down, you did a chemical analysis, it might still be we got no idea. Or it might be hey, we know what the chemical is, we got no idea how they made it. So we might be able to synthesize, but how would they have made it? Well, it might be that a process that they had for doing something was producing this runoff, this waste product that's like, hey, what if we put it on glass, and then, hey, suddenly they got this specific color of stained glass. You do see things like that happening. But that's one thing that just didn't... That's a detail that it wouldn't even fit into modern day for us, because we're using other processes. We don't have that waste product anymore because we're doing other things. So I get the idea that, and do agree with the idea that they figured that... I'm going to use the term alien civilizations as far as just being different. So like ancient Egypt to me would be an alien civilization because it's so different from mine. And I would be so different from them that, yes, they would be doing things with materials, using tools that I would not be familiar with. But it's not that one is more advanced than the other. It's just they would be masters of what they have, of their resources, and I would be a master of mine. Okay, maybe not that much, but still, I hope you get the idea there. So the idea that just because, hey, you got an ancient civilization that achieved all this stuff, it's like, it's not necessarily going to be more advanced. It's just going to be different. Do I know of any, like, actual historical examples of that? I'm thinking. Unfortunately, I actually don't really... Yeah. Huh. That's actually interesting to notice. Well, okay, that kind of works. That one kind of works. it was just occurring to me because so much of the history I've been taught is, let's say, just Roman Empire. Because I don't want to say just European. Largely European, yes, but also some Egyptian. Because, ancient Egypt is really cool. And so it's like Roman Empire. It's like where the Roman Empire was, that's where most of my history knowledge would be from. But in a lot of cases, it's kind of linear, or at least how it's been taught is linear. Like how I said, ancient Egypt went from being Egyptian to being Greek to being Roman. So it's like, it went in that order. And technically there were multiple ancient Egypts, because, even though, yes, Cleopatra was a Ptolemy, it still is, prior to Ptolemaic rule, that Egyptian culture, that Egyptian civilization was different from the one that built the pyramids. There were many differences there. It's still, because it's like such a small area, and you did have superpowers there, I don't really know much about like competing parallel civilizations. I guess maybe if I knew more about Carthage. Carthage was a competitor to Rome. Technically, Troy would have been a competitor to the Greek city-states. But those both, I think, are considered similar civilizations. Carthage, not so much, compared to Rome. But one comparison could be Oriental cultures, such as Japanese culture, and European. Because you had, if I remember, you had knights in, like, plate armor and samurai at the same time periods. Obviously, they wouldn't necessarily interact. They were, across the planet from each other. But you did see very different designs there because it fit what they were doing. So you would have full plate armor, you would have chainmail, and such with European knights and men at arms. But in Japan with the samurai, some of that was like lacquered leather. Crap, I don't know what else, but also like wood products in this, so not necessarily a great deal of metal. Compared to like a full plate armor. I'm pretty sure that samurai armor, there would be metal pieces, but it wouldn't be full plate. I'm not aware of them using mail. Not that I know that their history very well, but it's like none of the images I've ever seen, even like anime kind of stuff, where it would be trying to show off, and in a good way. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I can't think of any time like even mail would have been used. But Japan didn't necessarily have the metal resources as Europe had, so they had to become masters of a different technology for their armor and weapons than the Europeans did. But, I mean, that kind of parallel civilization stuff. I don't remember why I started off on this point. I remember the main point about the whole... Oh, yeah, that's right. Just the whole parallel... Well, seeing two civilizations that are sufficiently different that you can see them having different priorities, different resources, and seeing how they develop. Versus just one, which might be what the slaver civilization was. It is an interesting idea, and it would be an anthropological, along with historical and archaeological study here on Earth. I'm trying to think, do I have anything else, or should I just be stopping this? I have definitely gone. That's how my brain works. I do want, but just going back, but I do want to find a good book to go through the accurate, true history of the Middle Ages and what led to it. But man, that's one of those things that's hard to find when I've tried looking. Not that I've necessarily looked very deeply, very, very hard, but it is difficult because, like I was saying, the monasteries were the ones preserving a lot of the ancient Roman and Greek texts. That's like, hey, this is the ancient knowledge you're saying that was lost, and are blaming the church for it. It's like, it's the church trying to preserve it. Things like that. I mean, it's like there's so many other factors involved, but it's become the myth that no, that was why. It's like that's not true for what you're claiming. It's like, here are counterexamples, and that is grossly oversimplifying. I'd love to find a good book that really goes into that, but most every time I've tried looking, what I see in the descriptions are still continuing the myth, or at least it's presented as though, yes, this is just true. Here's other stuff as well. It's like, I would like that critical analysis there. it is interesting because I do have some books for other things that do present critical analysis of stuff. And also the one that's actually on the top of the stack there is a copy translation of the Christopher Columbus's travel log, which is, I'm definitely looking forward to reading that because another book that I have read did talk about how, because there's a lot of stuff that's claimed about him. It's like, well, actually, when you read his travel logs, which do not, the primary travel logs do not exist. I think it's a copy of some of them existed into like the 18th century, but also other documents that reference them have existed. So what I have over there is basically the best version we know of for, not to say that this specific translation is the best, but just the best we could reconstruct of them because the originals have been lost. But it's like, no, when you actually read what's in there, what they try to present for what he did and what his reasons were, there's a lot of myths there, and they are to be anti-Columbus, anti-Catholic to a degree as well, and also, well, anti-Spain and anti-American. It's like, yeah, no, you actually read this, because like one thing that I do remember being mentioned is some people try to claim that came here and it was to enslave the people, and it's like, well, apparently no, because there was actually a decree that because Spain found the New World, they were like, okay, you are all now, that is our land now, you are all Spanish citizens, and by law, Spanish citizens cannot be slaves. So it's like there's that aspect, which, true, I'm pretty sure later on, the Spanish did enslave, but it's still like the initial thing when Columbus was there was, no, they were free people. Yeah, there's other things like that as well. Like, I remember, okay, we don't need to get into that. I don't need to go that far afield. But yeah, how about I just start talking about the next thing? But I will end that conversation on this. Keep pointing that way. I'm now referring to animated series. The stack of books is over there. Reading history is very interesting when you can find when you can find books that they do present a more critical point of view. That's more of a, and here's the original document. Here's what it says. Here's who's saying it. Here's why they would say this as well. Because it's also important to note is that some of the historical documents may be polemic in nature, meaning they are trying to insult somebody. So you got to be careful with how you interpret that then. So like what I'm actually reading, the main thing I'm reading through over there, it's definitely being brought up that, yeah, unfortunately, one of the primary sources we have for events of the day really hated the people that are being referred to here. So he would take every opportunity to insult them, but sorry. Also been a few times when it's like, yeah, but even this guy was like, this is what I'm being told happened, not that I know happened. So, we also have one over there that, like, the Galileo affair. I don't remember what On Trial for Reason, the Galileo affair. That's that book. That was an interesting one to read because it is providing, like, best sources, it seems, and just this is what was said there. This is the context. And, like, this is what was said. This is what was written at the time. Here's the context providing that, because it really does challenge a lot of what people believe occurred with the Galileo affair. And it's like, yeah, a lot of that is not actually true. That's not to say that what happened there is better, but there is far greater nuance. But yeah, so I want to find a good one on Middle Ages. I'd like to find a good one on the Spanish Inquisition as well, because that, from other things I've been reading, is like that is way more complex than people today realize. Also be interesting because of the On Trial for Reason. If I can find a good one on the 30 Years' War, that could be very interesting as well. Anyway, come back to this. What is next week? Next week will be the ambergris element. I don't know, 12th made, 13th to air. So yeah, that should be interesting. I'm just looking. So, and then it's the Jihad, the Territon Incident, the Eye of the Beholder, then Once Upon a Planet, and that finishes off season 1. Then we get into season 2. That's, what is it, 6 episodes? 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6. So we're getting there. Getting towards the end. And then, as I've said before, I don't know, it's just not easy doing these once a week, especially doing them alone. There's a part of me that if I could do them more frequently, but I don't have that much time to do these more frequently, unfortunately. Yeah. I'd have to really change a lot with my schedule, and my schedule's not all my own. So, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see you next time for that. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to mention. I don't think so. The week after, I might need to skip. We'll see. No. Sorry, 2 weeks. So yeah, next week I should be good. The week after should be good. The week after that, I might not be able to. We'll see. We'll see. And I also might come up with with another solution. It all depends. Okay. Okay. Anyway, random emails that I don't know how to, like, why are some of these being sent to me? Like LinkedIn, do you not understand me better? Well, true, I try not to use it that much, so no, it wouldn't understand me better. Oh, I just remembered one thing. Because I've been going through redoing some of my reprocessing media on the different Blu-rays and such to put on the server. That means I'm going through and I'm actually able to pull out something. I don't recognize that. Which one is that? Oh, yeah, that's right. So I added some new things that I can play. Here's okay. Very much an aside. I don't care. It's a good movie. It's a good movie, and I do kind of want to make this point as well. Let me clear that. Okay. So in my collection, I have 2 movies, and I know this is a nobody cares. Nobody cares. I get that. In a way, though, if this clip will be a good one to end on too. You'll see. From my collection, there are 2 movies I would say, and amusingly, they're actually on top of each other right here, that if you want to be an online influencer, like you want to do these live streams and you want to make it to... These are 2 movies you should have to watch first. One of them is Sullivan's Travels, to help let you understand what people actually want. Okay, pulling up Jellyfin on my phone so I can figure out what year it's from, because I do not remember. 1941. Okay. Which is... The premise to it is you have... He's the great director of his day. So think Christopher Nolan. No. Nolan. It's Christopher Nolan, right? Or is it Jonathan? I am very sorry that I'm getting this... Yeah, Christopher Nolan. Okay. I had The Dark Knight right there, so... It would be like him. And the idea is that he finally wants to tackle this very difficult story of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Which, how it is presented in Sullivan's Travels, it's meant more to be about a great film about the common man, especially the forgotten man. The Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, made in, what was that, in the 90s? Not the same film. Okay, it's the same title, but we're not talking about the same film, the same story. And he goes out and he's trying to do this, and he basically learns a lot about how life is so very different from what that kind of life is very different from what he knows. Essentially, he's getting out of Hollywood and actually seeing flyover country. I live in flyover country, okay? I do have disdain for that idea. So part of the reason why I love Sullivan's Travels. So there's that, and he learns a lot, and some of it also he did not expect. I'll just leave it at that, because I don't want to spoil stuff there. But basically it's a very humbling experience for him, which is a part of the reason why I would say, and what he ultimately decides to do in the end. Good reasons why. If you want to be an influencer, watch that movie first, so you are learning that, hey, don't approach things like Sullivan at the start of the film. The other movie is A Face in the Crowd. Very good movie. Starring Andy Griffith. And, hang on. I did pull it up. And Patricia Neal. You also get Walter Matthau in there. But mainly it's Andy Griffith and Patricia Neal. Patricia Neal, who did plenty of films. She's a good actress. I just closed it and I completely forgot. What year was that? I think it's also 40s. Oh no, sorry, 57. that actually does make more sense. 57. Where the premise there is she has plucked him from obscurity, in fact, out of a jail, and decisions were made to elevate him, to make him a prominent face. He is a face in the crowd. Well, it's also her. She plucks him out because she's working for a radio station, and her program is a face in the crowd. Like, this one person that's just in the crowd, let's get to know them, present them to everyone. But this guy, because Andy Griffith's character, because he has some musical quality. He can play a guitar. This was true of Andy Griffith. But it's also he had certain down-to-earth witticisms, common sense, you might say. He could speak to the common man. That made him very powerful, very influential, because so many people would connect with him. But as he grows in popularity and in power, he is corrupted by his own baser desires, and also people are trying to manipulate and use him for their own benefit. But he is but his hubris is so great, it does hurt him. And this is actually part of how the movie ends, where he is definitely corrupt at this point, and Patricia Neal is exposing him by... the mic is supposed to be cut, because he's got a television show now, and the credits are rolling over as he's just talking with people around him. The mic is off, she turns back on, and this is part of what we get.
Sure, I got 'em like this.
You know what the public's like. A cage full of guinea pigs.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.
There are a lot of trained seals. I toss them a dead fish and they'll flap their flippers.
There was more before that, more after that, but such a good scene and such a good movie. And as I said, that's another one where it's like, I feel if you want to be an influencer online, you got to watch that movie, because you do not want to be that man. Okay? You really don't want to be. And you have such a beautiful scene after this. Because that went out to the public. They saw that. He has no idea that happened. He gets in the elevator because he needs to, leave the building and go to his apartment. And go to his apartment building and then go back up. As he's going down, and it's showing the lights in the elevator just flickering on and off, with the numbers going down, it's cutting to people calling in, I'm never going to watch this show again. How could you possibly let that air? This is horrible. How dare you do... And all these things, and basically his ratings collapsing is being shown with the elevator. Oh, it's such a good movie. But yeah, both that and Sullivan's Travels, I would recommend. Face in the Crowd, a bit more of a serious movie. Sullivan's Travels, it's not completely, but is does start like touching on melodrama. Okay, like, lacking some degree of sincerity. Face in the Crowd, no, it's very good, very sincere movie. But yeah, it's watch. I would definitely say watch that, because you gotta keep that humility, and don't be that guy who would ever insult his people. You gotta respect them. You have to respect your audience. Try to talk to them or talk up to them. Never talk down to them. Kind of stuff. So, yeah. All right. Here, I got another one from Ocean's 11, because it's just neat.
Call me anytime. Love to have you waste your money.
Sorry, I've never seen the newer Ocean's 11, but watched that not too long ago, and saw that scene. It's like, man, I like that scene. See, this is why we gotta watch classic media. Okay, you got so much good stuff there. Is there good stuff in modern films as well? And by modern, I'll even include just within the past 20 years. Yeah, but there's like another 80 years before that has also a bunch of good stuff. All right. Yeah, this has definitely gone on long enough. All right. Sorry. So see you next week. I don't know if I will be putting more videos in it, and there actually are a couple more that I could share, but I'm like, this is already getting long enough. This is definitely getting long enough. So yeah, just